This is Ben from Ben's Kitchen and Garden, and I am doing some pickling of cucumbers. Of course, it's running late into the evenings. That's always how these projects go. But these sat overnight. These are all my cucumbers sliced up into ruffle chips, my mandolin. This is my favorite shape for pickles. I think it is so fun and cool looking and just makes a really crunchy, textured pickle. Trying to get that to focus there. There we go. So you can see that this is overripe or overdone, whatever you want to say. It was on the plant too long, so you can see those seeds in the center of it. Ideally, a pickling cucumber would look a little bit more like this. It might have some seeds, but it certainly wouldn't have something like this, where you get this huge seed cavity. Now, I don't actually care that much. I know a lot of people will scoop out the seeds and make a big to-do about cutting it in half and sort of like, scooping out the inside and that kind of thing. I'm fine with it. There aren't too many, and it's just not that big of a deal to me. But I probably, ideally, would have found pickles or cucumbers that were just a little bit smaller in size. But this is what I had. It's kind of towards the end of the season here, so I salted these and I let them sit in the fridge overnight. Now here's this huge container as well, and this container was completely full. I'll see if I can move this out of the way so you can see it. When I started this last night, so it's about half, and I salted them heavily and put them in the fridge. So that's how much they go down. I rinse them and pour out all that water. When I taste one of these cucumbers, it's nicely salty. It's not overly salty, and you can tell it's just a little bit less watery. So that's ideal. Something like this even has got a nice crispness to it. So here's what I'm going to do. Try to make this really easy on myself. And if you're ever canning, you know this. You want to have everything set out so that it's really easy to access. So I got my clean jars here, and I have a few seasonings that I'm going to add right to the jar, and then some things that I'll add to the brine that'll heat up on the stove. So I'm just doing kind of a simple pickle because that's just what I have on hand. This is garlic that I have just peeled, and I'm going to smash it and put it in each jar. I have a little bit of red pepper flake because I like a little bit of spiciness. You could use fresh jalapeno or a dried chili. This is minced onion. Again, you could use fresh onion. I just didn't have any. I think it's going to be really nice in there though, and give it a little bit of a sweeter, rounder onion flavor. I think I'm going to add a little bit of dill weed to each container too, just because I like that dill flavor. This is just what I had on hand again. And this is pickling spice that I bought last year maybe, and I actually think I way overdid it on the pickles I did last year. So that clove flavor that's in pickling spice often, it was just overpowering. So I may do it again. I may just leave it out. You can see it's really pretty, but it's got a very, very earthy and almost floral smell taste to it. There's a lot of different mixes. It's just a pre-made one. It's got, I don't even know, allspice and a whole bunch of other things, mustard seed. It's just a little bit overpowering last year, so I'm hesitant now. The last thing I'll do is I'll add about 1/8 of a teaspoon of calcium chloride. It's the same stuff that's in Pickle Crisp, and it's just an awesome firming agent. So this is a really nice way to ensure that your pickles are crispy. I'm going to do that with all of these, and then I'm going to pack them full of my cucumbers. This will not be enough jars, but that's a good start. And then we'll see where we go from there. Then what I'm going to do is once these are full, I'm going to decide how much brine I need so I'm not making a ton of extra brine. That's one of my efficiency techniques there that ensures that you don't end up with gallons of extra brine, which is always super wasteful. So we'll start with that, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so the jars are all set, they're packed full, they look gorgeous, and now I'm gonna make the brine. So I ended up with 13 jars of pickles. I'm sorry, 13 quarts of pickles, which is some were quarts and some were pints. And now I'm gonna make this brine. So I already did this vinegar and water mixture, and all I'm doing is about 50-50 vinegar water. I use some apple cider and some white vinegar, and then the rest of it's water. And all I'm thinking about is if I have 13 quarts of pickles, I'm gonna need about 10 quarts of brine because the pickles in there, and if I do need to add more brine, I easily can just add more vinegar. So I'm not gonna make a ton of extra brine. That's one of the things I like to do to ensure I'm not just making huge excess of brine. Those pickles will shrink up a little bit in there as well. This is white sugar, I'll add that in. And I'm gonna add some of this brown sugar too, just a nice flavor combination. You can see I'm kind of eyeballing here. The big thing is just ensuring that the brine is enough vinegar, which I know it does, and then making it suit your taste. And then I gotta add some salt. Now I weighed or measured out this salt based on about a teaspoon per container or per jar. So I know that those pickles already have a lot of salt on them, because I said to let them sit in the brine overnight, let all that water come out. If you remember earlier, I mentioned that I salted them heavily and then left them in the fridge overnight. So that's all this is, super, super simple. I'm gonna let those flavors in the jar kind of, develop as it sits in pickles. And then this brine will be nicely acidic and just a touch sweet. So now this goes on the stove, get this boiling hot. Then I'll add that to the jars. Okay, so I have a few things going on here. I have a few jars filled up on this tray. I have a few in the boiling water, which is right here. It should say about to be boiling water, and those are looking good. And then I have this last few to fill up. So this is one of the most important steps for this canning process. And you can see here, this one has brine in it. It goes up until about that first or second band. I know there's that little tool to measure, but I usually just kind of eyeball. Works out fine. But I'm going to finish putting brine in these and then screw on the lids. So there are a lot of recipes, and there's a lot of what I like to think of as sort of dogma, some people would say tradition, around canning. The big thing is to ensure that you're being really, really mindful of the produce you're using and the acidity levels. Obviously you don't want anything to grow in there. And then just following general, cleanliness practices when you're cooking, which most cooks do, I would say generally. But as far as the whole process goes, there's not a huge reason to be afraid of any of singular parts of it. You just got to make sure you know and you're comfortable with the amount of acid that you're adding to these jars. When it comes to something like tomatoes, or what we would consider a low acid food, jams or jellies, something like that, you got to be really mindful of. Something that, especially for jams or jellies, may not have that high acidity level. You're not adding a ton of vinegar to. But something like this, which is mostly vinegar, there actually is a fairly wide range of safety that you can hit. And we could talk about the pH reading and all of that for this video. I'm just kind of showing you what I'm doing. But it is good to remember that, if you're storing these for a year, you gotta be really smart about how you're doing it. So I fill these up, and then I just take a paper towel and I just wipe around the edges to make sure that when I put that lid on there, there isn't extra liquid or food caught in it. See, maybe that one needs a little bit more. Nice. And then I will grab my lids, which are clean, and rinse, and I'll just show you on this one right here. So, got to make sure that this is on there. And you add that band on there that you're not over tightening, which is like the most simple way to have a bad seal. You can kind of crimp that lid. So You can see this one just needs a little bit more brine. I'm just making sure all the produce is underneath that brine. When in brine, all will be fine. That's a classic canning phrase. All right, that's looking a little bit better. This goes on, and then this tightens just to hand tightness. So that just looks like that. And that's all it is. This is hot because the brine is really hot. But this is my jar, and look how pretty that is. That looks nice. Now, because these cucumbers are already salted here, they're pretty well established with their size. They're not going to get much smaller than that, which is also ideal. So you're not going to have a ton of cucumbers down at the bottom or up at the top and then brine. It's just going to be how it looks. And you can see those spices down the bottom. Pretty. These will boil in that water bath for 10 minutes and then we are done. All right, so this is after these pickles have sat for about 5 days here. And you can see it's really, really pretty. I'm gonna open it up and see how we did. So I just wrote 21 on here for the year and just a very, very simple label. I have my favorite pickle fork here and I'll just crack it open. See, the seal is really good, which is great. Now normally I wouldn't open it up this soon. Sometimes these ones on the top that are a little bit less fully submerged don't give you the full idea. So I want to go down a little further. Anyways, I normally wouldn't open it up this early, but I thought just to finish this video, it would make sense to do somewhat of a taste test here. So I'm going to grab one of these. And this is what I was talking about, that big cavity there. This looks like I pulled some of the seeds out. But that is one of the downsides of having these bigger cucumbers, is this kind of thing happens. So not the end of the world, but just kind of goofy. Really, really crisp. I can see it's nice, firm, like gonna be a delicious pickle. Smells great. And it's lovely. It's got a nice little spice to it. It's not overwhelming. The garlic's in there really nicely. That onion was coming through super, super smooth. So yeah, definitely a successful pickle. Very simple, nice cucumber flavor, and just classic. I just love that ruffle cut. I think that is so just timeless in a way. It reminds me of those hamburger chips you get at the grocery store, which I don't think is a bad thing. So pretty. These will be even more flavorful in a week or two as everything just marinates, but thought I'd just at least open one up and see how we did. Thanks for watching.